Beyond Reason Radio.
So we have a lot to get to in the show today. If you've been listening to News Radio 102.5 WFLA, we have been doing coverage of the Florida GOP primary debate between Congressman Ron DeSantis and Agricultural Commissioner Adam Putnam, where we played the entire debate here on the station. We're going to recap, and I'll give you my thoughts as well. We'll play some audio from the debate. And so if you want to get updated on all the latest, if you missed any of the debate, this is the show that you can do it. And we also have to talk about what is going on at the Supreme Court. So the big news yesterday was that Justice Anthony Kennedy has decided he is going to retire, which means that Trump gets to pick another Supreme Court justice. And I think we all heard a unison scream from the left yesterday in the country. The left side of the country just all at once yelled to the sky.
They were howling at the sun.
So I think a lot of what they were saying yesterday was really overreaction. And I'm going to tell you why later in the show as well. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We're on until 9 p.m. tonight right here, News Radio 102.5 WFLA. And, of course, we have Mr. Tom Benson, who was listening to the debate and watching the debate as well. And he is joining me to produce. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing fine. Again, there's no dearth of topics to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately,
we got another shooting to talk about.
We have to start with some more bad news. And this is really scary for people like you and I, Tom Benson, because we work in the news business. We work for a news radio station. And we have a shooting in Annapolis, Maryland. This is according to Fox News. At least 5 people were killed and several others were gravely injured during a shooting at the newsroom of the Capital Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland, Thursday afternoon. Local officials said in one of the deadliest attacks involving journalists in U.S. history. I'm looking at the monitor right now, and the police are saying that this was a targeted attack on the Gazette. That's brand new information. We didn't have a motive until now, and I don't think they have given the entire motive. Once I have more information, a lot of this is coming in right now. Once I have more information, we'll get to that in just a minute, but I wanted to give you the latest on that. Fox News says law enforcement was called to the scene at Bestgate Road around 2:40 p.m. following word of an active shooter. I was looking at tweets earlier from one of the reporters in the building, and this is what he said. Phil Davis, who was a reporter there, tweeted this out while it was happening, or right after. Said, a single shooter shot multiple people at my office, some whom are dead. Gunman shot through the glass door to the office and opened fire on multiple employees. Can't say much more and don't want to declare anyone dead, but it's bad. He tweeted out, there is nothing more terrifying than hearing multiple people get shot while you're under your desk and then hear the gunman reload. So there's no doubt that this is going to be a really big debate. The biggest story of the next couple of days, there's going to be a lot of talk on this shooter's motive, on the state of civility in this country, the state of the political divide in this country, hatred for the media. That'll be another topic discussed. It's a little early to talk about some of that stuff now because, frankly, we don't know all of the details.
We don't even know who the shooter was.
Yeah, and they're having trouble IDing him as well, from what I understand.
He jeopardized his fingertips so they couldn't run fingerprints on him. Right.
So we're going to find out more information, hopefully. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning on Good Morning Orlando. And actually, I have a report here from Fox News as well with the latest. And go ahead and play that for me, Tom Benson.
Multiple agencies remain on the scene for an investigation expected to go well into the evening. The suspect is in custody and being questioned. Anne Arundel County Acting Police Chief William Cramp says the building is tactically secure, which means
our SWAT team and our quick responders have been through the building.
It is secure as far as there are no more persons in the building that are a threat to anyone else.
He says the what, the how, and the why are questions that still must be answered. Police also say what they thought was an explosive device has been taken care of. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
So that is the breaking news as just a few hours ago. If anything more breaks, we'll get that to you as quickly as we can. Right now, the headline is that this was a targeted attack on the newspaper. I saw another headline that police, the New York City Police Department was heading out to all the newspapers in New York City to make sure they're secure. So this real troubling situation, especially for anyone who works in news like you and I do, Tom Benson.
And the same company that owns the Orlando Sentinel owns this newspaper that was attacked today.
Right, and the Baltimore Sun, which is up there as well,
right,
is affiliated with this. So we don't know his motive on why he attacked the Gazette, but we'll find out more as the details come in. So the shifting gears here, the other big story of the show is that we had the Florida GOP primary debate between Adam Putnam and Ron DeSantis. And I'm going to give my thoughts on this because I have some observations, and I know I'm not the only one with these observations on what was going on in that debate. I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is when you have a debate like this, on most of the issues, they're going to agree. So they have to try to differentiate themselves from each other. They have to find ways to show how they're different from the other candidate. Because on most of the issues, they're going to agree. So when it comes to real deep issues, they're not going to, it's not like a Republican versus a Democrat. Then you get in the issues and then you talk about where you disagree and you talk about the direction you want to take Florida or the country. They're not going to do that in a debate like this. So they're going to have to find other ways to stand out. And they did. And I'll talk about that in a sec. In fact, Adam Putnam, this was one of his first comments in the debate. This comment shows exactly what the strategy was and what the strategy is for the Putnam campaign against Ron DeSantis. And honestly, I think it's a pretty smart move by him. Here's something that he said early on in the debate.
I'm running a Florida First campaign. I care more about the schools in Washington County than what's going on in Washington, D.C. I care more about what's going on in Ruskin, Florida, with congestion and infrastructure and the quality of our water than I do about what's going on in Russia, and I care more about the other St. Petersburg, Florida. A Florida First agenda is going to put vocational and technical training back into our schools. It is going to increase the types of career opportunities that keep our brightest and best here in Florida and make us a magnet for talent from around the world. That's the job of the next governor of the great state, to put the third largest state in a position to help make America great again by our strength here in Florida.
Okay, so Putnam's strategy, which is a good strategy, is that he is going to be the guy that cares about Florida. I don't know if you noticed that, Tom Benson, but it was incredibly obvious that any time there was an issue going on in this debate, his main focus was bring it back to Florida. Bring it back to what he calls the Florida First campaign. Why is this important to our state? Why is he the guy who really cares about the state of Florida? So it's an obvious strategy, and I think it's a smart one because if you've watched the campaigns in just the past few weeks and you watch that debate, Adam Putnam does seem like the Florida guy. Ron DeSantis is the Washington, D.C. guy.
Exactly.
Adam Putnam seems like the Florida guy. So he's definitely trying to use that to win this debate.
I think DeSantis has a problem with identity outside the Jacksonville area.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because he's a congressman from up there.
Right.
But, Putnam's got wider name recognition, if you will.
Well, see, I don't know about that because Ron DeSantis has been on Fox News he's on Fox News all the time. I see him on Fox and Friends almost every morning, it seems like. And so he's trying to use his national platform to get this name recognition that way. So the people of Florida know him as the guy who they've seen on Fox News all the time defending President Trump. Which goes to the next thing that I really noticed when it comes to what happened in this debate. In fact, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and play cut 2 of Adam Putnam, and it'll be very obvious where both candidates went in this debate. Here it is.
Look, I support our president. I support our president's agenda for our country. I support the fact that all of us paid less in taxes this year because of Trump's tax cuts. I love the fact that he's taking it to our so-called trading partners to defend Florida farmers, to fight for American jobs. I love the fact that he went to Singapore to meet with the North Korean government so that he can denuclearize that peninsula. And I love the fact that he's getting another Supreme Court justice. And I love that together we all get to watch America get better by the day while Hillary explains the title of her book, What Happened? What happens is she lost. That's what happened.
So it was the most obvious thing coming out of this debate that both Ron DeSantis and Adam Putnam continually went out of their way to praise President Trump. Both of them did. All the time. They both know that if they don't, because there's some things that were talked about in this debate that Trump maybe deserves a little bit of criticism for, at least I would have. Adam Putnam, Ron DeSantis would not even touch criticizing Trump with a 10-foot pole.
Of course not. They're going to try and attach themselves to a star.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they know. I think some of it's fear. Because they know that if they cross Trump,
you're in trouble.
If you cross Trump, exactly, all of a sudden Trump gets out a smartphone and he starts tweeting, and it can get ugly.
They both said, we like Donald, but DeSantis was the one who says, Donald likes me most because he's endorsed me.
and that brings me to my next point. As I said earlier, Adam Putnam, his strategy was to be the Florida guy, to be the Florida first guy, to say, look, I am the right guy for the governor of Florida because I actually care about this state. While Ron DeSantis is in Washington, he's caring about Russia, he's caring about national issues. I'm going to be the guy who cares about Florida jobs, Florida's economy, Florida's education, and all of that stuff. Ron DeSantis' strategy was different. His strategy was, I'm the Trump guy. I am the guy that Trump likes. I am the guy who's going to do everything that Trump wants to do. If you love President Trump, then you love me. It was very obvious that that's what Ron DeSantis is running on. In fact, here is DeSantis, and he calls out Putnam a little bit on who Trump likes the most or who likes Trump the most. Here he is.
Well, that would be the first time you ever campaigned with him because when Donald Trump was trying to win Florida in 2016, Adam Putnam did not attend a single rally with him. You couldn't find Adam Putnam if you had a search warrant.
Commissioner, do you want to respond?
So there you go. And Adam Putnam really didn't have a good response to that because DeSantis was right. He wasn't really big on the Trump campaign during Trump's campaign. Now he loves Trump, but back then it was DeSantis was the guy who really loved Trump. So he called him out, and that just shows you exactly what DeSantis' strategy is. He is saying, look, I'm the Trump guy. Love me. If you love Trump, love me. It was pretty obvious. Now go ahead and play the next DeSantis cut, which goes back to that point as well. Here it is.
So I've been one of the few who were out there from the very beginning. When Comey was fired, I was right there saying that was the right thing to do. When Mueller was appointed, I said there was no basis. In fact, I was on your show hours after Mueller was appointed. I didn't have my finger in the wind. I wasn't waiting for what the polls or the media said. I knew it was wrong, and I stood for what I believe was right.
So there you go. There's no doubt that all over, I could play 50 cuts probably from that debate of both of these guys, especially DeSantis, but both of these guys praising President Trump. And they would not criticize him. And well, I have some more cuts that shows that maybe there were some times they should have criticized them, but neither of them would even come close to doing it. There's also another strategy I noticed from Ron DeSantis, which I want to talk about in a sec as well. If you happen to listen to the debate on this station or watch the debate on Fox News and you have a comment on who you like, you can call 407 916-5400 or text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio, a special edition of Beyond Reason Radio, post-Florida primary, GOP primary, debate edition of Beyond Reason Radio. Here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA, we played the entire debate. If you have any comments, you can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply, or call 407-916-5400. So the debate was between Adam Putnam, who is the agricultural commissioner, and Ron DeSantis, who is a congressman. See him on Fox News all the time. So just looking at some texts here and on Twitter and some observations I've noticed as well between the two candidates. The main criticism I've seen of Adam Putnam from this debate is he did not come off as genuine. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of times where he seemed like he was kind of evading questions a little bit. And this is typical politician stuff. So what he would do is he would answer the question but not really answer the question. And it's because he doesn't want to get caught in the gotcha soundbite moment. I understand that. But that was some criticism I saw out there of Adam Putnam, that he did not seem as genuine, that Ron DeSantis seemed like the genuine guy, and that his message was a little bit better, where Adam Putnam seemed like sort of the typical politician.
I also think that Putnam could have lowered the octave of his voice a little bit. He's a little bit too much up here all the time, you know. Should have brought it down to a lower level. That's just your broadcaster
you think? In you. Yeah, you notice stuff like that. I don't know if the typical person notices it, but maybe. So back to a more strategy between the two candidates. I talked about how the main strategy with Adam Putnam is he is the guy who loves Florida. He's the Florida guy. He's going to focus on Florida, put Florida first, and he wants to paint DeSantis as the Washington guy who puts national issues first, who puts Washington, D.C. first, who puts the lobbyists first, yada, 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 who doesn't have the connections to Florida that Adam Putnam has. And Adam Putnam has a lot of experience governing in this state. There's no doubt about it. That's really a benefit to his campaign.
And he was a congressman himself for 10 years.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true as well. So that was Putnam's strategy. And DeSantis' strategy, his first strategy, was to be the Trump guy. He's the guy who Trump wants, who Trump loves, and he's the guy who loves Trump. So everything Trump does, he supports 100%. He's really fighting for Trump against the media, against the establishment, and so on and so forth. So that was DeSantis' main strategy. There was one other strategy I noticed by DeSantis, which is actually pretty smart. So there's a couple of big issues out there where DeSantis was trying to show that Adam Putnam is weak on those issues. The biggest one I noticed was immigration. He was trying to show, because immigration's in the news right now, Trump obviously supports tougher immigration laws, tougher border security and all that. And DeSantis was trying to paint Adam Putnam as weak on this issue. Now, I don't know if this is going to work, but here is some of what DeSantis said about Putnam on immigration.
When he was in the Congress, he joined with Nancy Pelosi as the only Republican in Florida to vote against allowing military on our border to help secure it. When he was ag commissioner, he endorsed the Schumer-Obama Gang of Eight immigration amnesty, the biggest amnesty in history. It would have lowered wages for American workers, and it would have created an incentive to come illegally. And when we had a chance in Florida to do E-Verify, which is the #1 thing you can do to shut off the job spigot, it would raise wages, increase the rule of law, and be good for taxpayers. He twisted arms in the state Senate. He helped kill it behind the scenes. So I appreciate he's saying to put Florida first, but he didn't put Florida first there. He put his big donors who want cheap foreign labor ahead of the interests of our citizens.
So DeSantis, and this was smart, there was a couple of issues where DeSantis really tried to be specific on how Adam Putnam was not good on those issues. So Adam Putnam's strategy against DeSantis was more big picture, more I care about Florida, DeSantis doesn't. DeSantis actually went to some specifics there, especially on immigration, and said, look, he says he's strong on these issues, but he's not, and this is why. I think that was a really smart strategy. And Adam Putnam came back later and said basically that the sheriffs of the state support him, and that shows he really is tough on immigration because these sheriffs want to be tough on immigration. That was his defense, but he really didn't have a defense for that specific criticism by DeSantis that, look, you didn't support E-Verify. Look, you supported an amnesty bill. And that could be kind of a weakness for Putnam. Now, the next issue I want to bring up, and this was the big issue, and this goes back to the whole thing I was saying earlier in the show, that both of these candidates refused to cross President Trump. Both of these candidates would not criticize him at all. I don't think I heard one criticism of him. One of those issues was tariffs. So tariffs is something that, because Trump is trying to get these trade deals, he's upped tariffs on the European Union, he's upped it on Canada, Mexico, he's upped it on China. And this is something that can affect Florida because Florida exports a lot of its agricultural products. So Florida will try to export them. And if there's some kind of trade war, that could actually hurt Florida farmers. And it could also hurt, say, Florida's tourism industry, and it could hurt Florida businesses. So there's some issue there. And then we're going to see, would either of these candidates criticize Trump on trade because it's something that could hurt Florida? Yeah, neither of them were willing to do it at all. In fact, both candidates praised Trump on tariffs. Like I said, they went out of the way to praise Trump no matter what. Here is Ron DeSantis talking about why he supports Trump's trade policies right now.
But here's the thing you have to understand. Donald Trump wrote The Art of the Deal. He knows how to negotiate, and I've talked to him about this. He does not want to see an end state where we have high tariffs across the board. But he also looks around the country and says, we have other countries that bring goods, sell goods to us, and we don't really charge much of a tariff, and yet we can't sell some of our products to there. So he's looking at that imbalance and saying he wants to do something about it. So if his negotiating isn't working in this way, I think he'll try something else. But this is not the direction he's going to say we want high tariffs writ large. He's trying to get concessions on behalf of the American people.
So here's a time then maybe you would think, okay, Adam Putnam's going to come out and he's going to show that he's different than DeSantis on this and maybe criticize Trump on this trade policy. Nope, that's not what happened. Here's Adam Putnam.
President Trump's the first president who cared more about American jobs and Florida farmers than about the Swiss diplomats at their tea parties. He's fighting for us, and I am excited to see, finally, a president take on the trade wars that will benefit American workers, Florida businesses, and Florida farmers.
So there you go. Like I said, neither of these candidates want to even come close to criticizing Trump. They know that if they criticize Trump, that Trump will start tweeting, that Trump will really come out strong against them. And they were scared. They were. And I can understand that. So they both came out praising. That was the most obvious thing I noticed. There was a lot of other stuff we could cover in this debate as well. Guns was an issue that was talked about. As you know, Adam Putnam got some criticism earlier, a few weeks ago, because somebody in his department couldn't get into the system to do background checks on those trying to get a specific gun license. So they were just giving them out. Adam Putnam found this out and took care of it. And DeSantis criticized him and said, oh, but you were trying to cover it up. And Adam Putnam said, no, I was as transparent as possible. That was another one time where DeSantis was trying to get at something specific against Adam Putnam. I don't know if that's going to work. I didn't see an effort to cover up by Putnam in that issue. Once the press got a hold of that issue and it was out there, Adam Putnam was very transparent. He talked to the media. He said, we took care of this. Once he found out the issue happened, he took care of it, fired the person. So I didn't really see an effort to cover up. So I don't know if that's a fair criticism on Adam Putnam. So Tom Benson.
Yes, sir.
We watched the debate.
We did.
Listen to the debate. Do you have someone you're leaning towards?
No, as a matter of fact, I wasn't even thinking in those terms.
Really?
I think it's a little bit too early yet.
Okay.
This is the first debate. You know that they were going to be, I wouldn't say gentlemen, but they wouldn't take the gloves off, and go bare hands, knuckle to knuckle.
I'm wondering if they're ever going to do that because they both agree on most of the issues, and they both want to win against the Democrat in November as well. But we'll see what happens. Any other observations?
No, other than I thought the both of them could. I think the sound wasn't very good. Here's the broadcaster in me again. I don't think the sound was good there. I think they both could have dropped down their octaves, including the people at Fox.
Okay.
I mean, it was just everything was very high for some reason. I don't know why.
That's so funny that those are the two things you noticed: the octaves they talked about and the sound quality. That's the producer in you, Tom.
Well, I also think a lower register shows more sophistication. Higher octave would indicate some kind of nervous tendencies and being unsure of themselves.
Interesting. Little sound psychology from Tom Benson.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, 407-916-5400. Text to 23680 with standard message and data rates apply. If you have any comments on the debate between Adam Putnam and Ron DeSantis, the Florida primary GOP gubernatorial debate. So there's a lot of other news to talk about, and I definitely want to talk about it. The big news of the week, obviously, is that there is now a Supreme Court vacancy. That was actually another thing that came up in the debate. We'll talk about that, and I'll give my take on what the future of the Supreme Court looks like. And I think both sides are kind of exaggerating the importance of this. It is very important. I'm not saying that. But both sides are exaggerating the importance on this, and I'll tell you why in the next segment. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. Your safe space for conservative thought. Not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
I am thrilled that President Trump has a second opportunity to remake the U.S. Supreme Court with a constitutionalist justice. This is going to be exciting for decades to come.
And I think the opportunity to replace Justice Kennedy is really a historic opportunity. It should be a constitutionalist in the mold of Justice Antonin Scalia or Clarence Thomas, who understands the proper role of the court is to apply the law and Constitution as it's actually written, not to legislate from the bench, not to impose a judge's philosophy.
So that is from the Florida GOP gubernatorial primary debate. First was Adam Putnam and the second was Ron DeSantis. Both of them had a chance to comment on the fact that Anthony Kennedy, Supreme Court Justice, announced his retirement yesterday, and that means there's a vacancy. And that means President Trump gets to fill that vacancy. And that means the left is going bananas over what has happened here with the Supreme Court. And there's a lot of different things to talk about with that. Before we get to that, I do want to update the latest. If you haven't heard at the beginning of the show, update the latest on the shooting in Annapolis. The police have come out and said that this was a targeted shooting against the Capital Gazette in Annapolis. So it seems like that this was a shooting targeting journalists, which I believe would be maybe the biggest mass shooting against journalists ever in this country. So I'd have to look at the details on that. Definitely one of the worst.
Well, also what we don't know, though, is, was he a target of a newspaper article himself? Or maybe it was a grudge against a particular reporter or two?
And we don't know. For all we know, he could have had a girlfriend that worked there or something. That's something like that's happened before. So it's hard to speculate on this kind of stuff yet, which I don't like to because we don't know all the details. We don't even know who the shooter is at this point. They had a hard time identifying them. But as of right now, the police are reporting that at least 5 people were killed and 2 others were injured, and they are calling it a targeted attack. So the place is secure right now, and there was what might have been an explosive device there, but they took care of that explosive device. So a lot more tomorrow morning as well on Good Morning Orlando. So back to this Supreme Court vacancy. It's obviously been the big topic of the day. I mean, yesterday the big topics really were the Supreme Court decisions, because the Supreme Court had some very major decisions yesterday, and that was all the focus. And then all of a sudden, Anthony Kennedy announces his retirement. Now, from what I've heard from a couple of different outlets out there, is that Anthony Kennedy and his family had some family members that were talking to people in the Trump administration. And they became more comfortable with Anthony Kennedy retiring because they became comfortable with who Trump was going to pick to replace him.
Aha.
So that could be a reason why Anthony Kennedy is retiring now. Now, he said it was because of family, and I'm sure that's all true as well. But that was a big issue if he wanted Trump to pick his replacement. And that worries me a little bit, because that might mean Trump doesn't pick a real conservative, tries to pick more of a swing voter. We'll see what happens. He says he's going to pick from his list of 25. Senator Michael Lee is on that list. Ted Cruz came out yesterday and said Michael Lee would be the best choice. Not only that, but Michael Lee's brother, Tom Lee, is on that list as well.
Wow.
So that is a very overachieving family. I'm very jealous of that family. But there you go. Could you imagine? Is it possible, like, if they pick Tom Lee and then there's another vacancy, they could pick Mike Lee and you would have brothers on the Supreme Court bench?
I think that's a reach, but it is.
I don't think it would ever happen.
Would be novel.
I'm a little reluctant to put Mike Lee on the bench because I really like him in the Senate, and I like him being out there in politics in the forefront. I think he's an important voice for conservatism in Congress, and I would really hate to lose that. I think we would lose some of that if he became in Congress. But my first thought on this, because the left, their first thought was immediately, oh no, abortion's going to be illegal, abortion. That was the first thing they came out with yesterday, and I have audio to prove that in just a sec. But my first thought on this is exactly what Judge Napolitano said this morning on Fox and Friends. I actually tweeted out something similar to this morning, and then a few minutes later, I saw Judge Napolitano say this. So I think he stole my tweet.
He follows you. Sure.
Yes, I think that's exactly what happened. But here is what he said this morning.
When Justice Scalia joined the court, Justice O'Connor became the swing vote. Mm-hmm. When Justice O'Connor retired, Justice Kennedy became the swing vote. Do you see a pattern?
Yep.
The least conservative of the conservative bloc moves over to become the swing vote. Who do I believe will be the swing vote when this new nominee, whoever he or she is confirmed? The Chief Justice, who has great relationships and even some ideological alliances. He saved Obamacare. He, as you know, I would have joined with the four liberals on requiring police to get search warrants before they can go into cell phones. But let me tell you, we have never had in the modern era a Chief Justice who's the swing vote. That will make him the most powerful Chief Justice since Earl Warren in the Eisenhower years.
That was exactly one of my first thoughts when I heard of Anthony Kennedy's retirement, and I heard the left going nuts. I said, I don't know why they are going so nuts, because in their mind, that means the conservatives, which is really not the term you want to use. It's not about being conservative politically. It's about being constitutionalists.
That's right.
Textualists, interpreting the Constitution as it was meant to be interpreted. Not that they're just on the right politically. So that's kind of a misnomer. It's a language the left likes to use that I really don't like. But when they were going crazy on this, I said, I don't think that's really necessary, because I think John Roberts will now be the swing vote. And the proof of that is he has been swingy. He has been a swingy vote. I know that's not a word, but I just made it a word, okay?
He's a swinger.
He has been a swinger when on the Supreme Court in the past. In fact, he was kind of a swinger. I don't know if we should be using this term, because he's gonna sue me for defamation. Not in that way, but he has been the swing. He has been the swing vote recently. I mean, the biggest time he was the swing vote was Obamacare. Mm-hmm. So when Obamacare came out, the individual mandate, you had Justice Kennedy who wanted to throw the whole thing out, not just the individual mandate, but all of it. That meant we were going to win on that issue. That meant Obamacare was going to be called unconstitutional. Then what happened? John Roberts changed his mind at the last minute, what a lot of people are reporting. And he was desperate to find a way to make it a law. And what he did is he decided that the individual mandate wasn't a mandate but a tax. And the reason why he called it a tax, this is in his ruling, is because it was up to the IRS to put forth, to enforce the individual mandate. So because the IRS was enforcing the individual mandate, that means that it's a tax. Why did John Roberts twist himself in knots to make that the ruling? Because he didn't want to be the guy to change such a monumental law. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because if abortion ever came up again in the Supreme Court, John Roberts will not vote against abortion in the Supreme Court. I can almost guarantee it. He does not want to be the deciding vote to vote against abortion in the Supreme Court. Now, there's some other issues that came up in the past week where he voted with the left. One of the biggest ones was South Dakota versus Wayfair Inc., which had to do with whether internet companies had to pay sales taxes, whether the states could charge something sold online, even if they're in another state, could charge them sales taxes. The conservatives said, yes, the states can do that. Their argument was because of federalism. John Roberts actually sided with the left side of the court and said, no, this should be done in the legislature. This is not an issue we should be doing. So that's another time that he sided. And then Napolitano also cited another time as well. So very interesting. I think John Roberts will be the swing vote. So I think the left needs to calm down a little bit because I don't think abortion's I mean, I want it to go away, but this is the reality that I see. Now, here's some examples of the left reacting to this yesterday. And as I said, immediately it went to abortion. Every time, that's immediately what they wanted to use because that's the issue they think they can, rile up the base with. Here's Rachel Maddow talking about it yesterday.
A clear majority of Americans want and expect that abortion will be legal in this country. The Supreme Court has agreed since 1973, but the Supreme Court is about to change radically on that issue specifically. And this sometimes feels like a perennial fight in this country. In this case, it's not. In terms of the legal, constitutional, protected right to access abortion services in this country, this may be the pull the fire alarm moment that you have been expecting, I think.
Pull the fire alarm moment you've been expecting. What does that mean? What does it mean to pull the fire alarm? What is that? I mean, honestly, what is she calling for there? I have no idea. But I just want to say, she goes, the majority of the people support the right to abortion in this country, is what she said. It is not the job of the court to rubber stamp what the majority wants. That's not the job of a Supreme Court justice. It is their job to interpret the law as written and as originally intended. And there is nothing that says that you have the right to kill the baby in the womb. Okay? And that's something that should be left up to the legislatures in the states. Something that should have never been decided by a court. Now, you also have Jeffrey Toobin, who was on CNN yesterday, and he was also railing against this. This is what he said.
Let's talk about what America is going to be like that's different. You are going to see 20 states pass laws banning abortion outright, just banning abortion, and because they know that there are now going to be 5 votes on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. And abortion will be illegal in a significant part of the United States in 18 months. There is just no doubt about that. And that's why these seats matter so much, because one of my favorite lines about the Supreme Court was by Justice Robert Jackson, who served on the court in the 1940s and 50s. And he said, "We are not final because we are infallible. We are infallible because we are final." Somebody has the last word, and here it's the Supreme Court, and right. Roe v. Wade is doomed. It is gone because Donald Trump won the election, and because he's going to have the chance, and because he's going to have the chance to appoint 2 Supreme Court justices.
I mean, he was very eloquent in what he said there. And I want him to be right. I don't think he is. I really don't think Justice Roberts will ever go on the other side of abortion. I think what he did with Obamacare told me that he does not want to change such a monumental law. So I think this idea that, abortion's going to be illegal in the next 18 months, no. I just think that's overreaction. Now, and we also have Whoopi Goldberg. She was on The View yesterday, and she also came out against and crying hysteria against what was going on. This is what she said.
If you take my right away from me to judge what I do for my family and my body, I got a little problem with that. You got a problem. You don't want people to take your guns. Well, get out of my behind. Get out of my vagina. Get out.
So all I have to say to that is, okay, I will stay away from those things, Whoopi Goldberg. You don't have to worry about that with me. I don't want to be anywhere near your behind or any other part. I just want to let you know, Whoopi, you can go ahead and...
Your body is safe. Your body is a temple.
I do not want to be anywhere close to any of that. But there you go. I understand why they're all upset, but by the way, our friend Amanda Precious-Giacomo from the Daily Wire, she tweeted this out today. Uh-huh. She goes, who's in Whoopi's vagina and how can we save them?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think they're overreacting. But Tom Benson's about to grow up.
I just had a nasty thought, and I'll keep it to myself.
Yeah, please do. Let's not get us kicked off the air. But I just want to say that this is not the one that they should be crying about. It's the next one, because I think there's a good chance Trump will be reelected, and there's a bunch of other old people on the court that could be replaced. Couple of the leftist judges could be replaced. That's the one you have to worry about, because then you have that majority. Right now, I think Roberts will just be the swing vote. So 407-916-5400, text to 23680. I haven't had a chance to react to Sarah Sanders being kicked out of the restaurant since last week, so I'll do that next. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
So it has been a quick show. We started the show with talking about the GOP Florida gubernatorial primary debate. I gave my take on that. We played some sound cuts. If you missed any of the show, make sure to check the podcast anywhere podcasts are available after the show. And the other topic, the big topic of the day, was the fact that Anthony Kennedy is retiring from the Supreme Court. And that means that Trump will get to pick his replacement. And I gave my take on the fact that I think that really just means that John Roberts is going to be the swing vote now. He has shown that he is not the strict constitutionalist that we hoped he would be. There have been some issues where he has definitely been the swing vote, mostly Obamacare. And I think Obamacare was the biggest example that John Roberts will not be the one who returns Roe v. Wade. He will not want to be that guy that returns such a overturns such a monumental law. He just won't be that guy. So if we want to overturn Roe v. Wade, it's going to take another justice. Now, if Trump gets reelected, that's possible. But the left was freaking out about this yesterday, but I think they were wrong. So real quick, I only have a couple minutes here. But Sarah Sanders being kicked out of the restaurant in Virginia. Then you had Maxine Waters calling for basically harassment against people in the Trump administration, all over the immigration issue and other issues. You had, real breakdown of civility. Now, believe it or not, another Sanders was asked about this, Bernie Sanders, and I actually agree with what he said for the most part.
Oh, okay.
For the most part on this issue. So I'm going to play that here real quick because I think he's right when it comes to this lack of civility and harassing people in restaurants and gas stations and all that stuff and where politics is going in this country. This is what Bernie Sanders said.
Well, I'm not a great fan of shouting down people or being rude to people. I think we have a situation now in a Congress which is way out of touch with where the American people are. And people have a right to be angry when Congress gives tax breaks to billionaires and then wants to cut nutrition programs for low-income pregnant women. You have a right to be angry. But take that anger out in a constructive way, and that means do exactly what Alexandria did last night. Get involved in campaigns so that we end one-party reactionary rule here in Washington.
So I don't agree with him on the issue, but I agree with the fact that if you are angry at something in politics or something that Congress is doing or something that's going on in the country, we have a process to vent that anger, and that's called the ballot box. That's why the American system is such a beautiful thing. You can have free speech, you can give your opinion, you can organize, you can hold rallies, you can hold protests, but ultimately you figure it out at the ballot box, and then you solve it that way. When we start getting into these fascist tactics, and that's what it would be when you're harassing people at restaurants and kicking them out merely because of our political differences, there are always going to be major issues going on in this country. And there are always going to be political divides going on in this country. And there is always going to be big disagreements going on in this country. But what keeps the country going, the foundation, is the civil society, keeping it civil and ultimately solving it at the ballot box. Once we go beyond that, and I understand on both sides, people are passionate. People feel like they want these issues solved. I get it. But on both sides, and Trump hasn't been perfect on this either. I don't defend Trump, everything he has said when it comes to civility. But we have to be civil. Otherwise, that really breaks down the foundation of the country more than any type of policy that's being debated right now. So I actually appreciate Bernie Sanders for at least coming out and saying some of what he said there. All right. I appreciate you listening to the show. If you missed any of the show, make sure to check out the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. iTunes, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever it is available, you can catch it. And, well, I'll catch you guys next time.